Hey, welcome to the All Ambient Podcast, where we dig into the creative process, we hear untold stories, and we explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. My name is Mike Graff. I make music as Dear Gravity. Really glad that we're here together today. On this music news edition of the All Ambient Podcast, we look at what is currently happening with Spotify's expansion into not just streaming music, but audiobooks as well. Some of the moves they've made to their plans that people knowingly or unknowingly have done, and then some of the moves that happen to all the royalties that have been paying out to creators and musicians worldwide. Some interesting things happening, especially the subject isn't entirely new, but bringing it to the attention of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is a new thing that has happened from a couple senators in the United States. So we kind of cover a lot of different turf. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's get right into it. Before we get there, make sure you come join All Ambient on Discord if you haven't yet. The link is in the show notes. Great conversations going on there. A lot of different artists, a lot of different musicians, producers, composers connecting, talking about all sorts of things, not the least of which is the podcast conversation on Discord, where we talk about each episode. You can ask additional questions, you can provide feedback, and you can even ask questions for future episodes if you would like. It's a great place to hang and connect with other like-minded folk. Come and join All Ambient on Discord. And also, make sure you go to all-ambient.com. Lots of great releases in the All Ambient family are coming out on streaming and licensing platforms. They're multiplying day by day in the best way. The number of releases that are coming out, any sort of quality in what's being released. Quite the opposite. The number of people who are incredible at what they do and who are attached to All Ambient continues to grow. And it is just a great thing. When you head over to All Ambient's website, coming in the near future, you will start seeing some resources that are dropping. We have plans to be rolling them out this year, not in a tease sort of way, but just in a we are actively working on things. We'll be very excited to share them with you when they arrive, and it's going to be great. But that's the place you're going to want to be at. all-ambient.com is the hub for all that. Enough of me blabbing. Let's dig into today's music news edition of the All Ambient Podcast. Marsh, you used to work at the Apple Store. Were you on the Genius Bar at the Apple Store?
No, I actually worked remotely. So
nice. Cool. So
I was a virtual genius.
Okay, so we were
just like I am now.
That's a great line. Before we started recording, I was just joking about the show, the IT crowd, and you had just said, like, if only you knew what I had to say to all these wonderful people that I was taking care of. What is the most common facepalm moment that you would hear like over and over again, where someone says like, "Oh, this is busted," and you're like, yeah, you just forgot to hit a button. Like what is the most common thing that you would hear as a virtual Apple genius?
Very good question. This was many years ago. I don't know if this is quite a facepalm, but definitely by far the most calls I got was that I forgot my password and I need you to help me before I lose all of my life's, good things.
But you can't really help, right?
No, we can help to an extent. I can give you the steps. And once you don't know the security question or whatever, we can only do so much. But there were quite a few. My buddy had this running joke with me because I can't remember what the feature was, but there was like this one call specifically where the lady's like, I'm pressing on the feature and it's not like opening. And I just went like, have you tried pressing a little harder?
No.
She presses and she's like, oh, there it goes. And so anytime I would like be talking with my bud about, he'd be like, have you actually tried pressing a little harder? So really just funny. Stuff like that where you're like,
give a little nudge.
At least they're going to say I solved their problem when they get a little survey about me. But those were some long days, man. The phone just didn't stop ringing,
Love it.
Have you ever heard of the ID10T error?
No.
ID10T?
I don't think so.
So my buddy was in IT and somebody would do something and he's talking to his other IT person and he goes, oh yeah, that's an ID10T error. And we'd be like, what? What are you talking about? But yeah. And so ID10T
I see.
so is idiot. It spells idiot.
Okay.
So they can be like,
okay.
oh no, it's ID10T. We're on it.
We are all ID10Ts for taking like 45 minutes to respond to that joke.
Yes, I had to think about it, but yes.
Awesome. Well, with that, welcome to the All Ambient Podcast, everybody. A wonderful music news episode. Glad to be here with Ben, with Marsh, and with Kirk. It's good to see you guys. Fun little article that launches into a space that we've talked about previously. We've talked about our friends at Spotify. We've talked about some of the shaping of direction that this particular streaming platform goes, and in this day and age, that other platforms take some direction from, whether they do the exact same or not. They're paying attention. Spotify seems to be the trendsetter in a lot of that. But I have an article here that I'd love to read through you guys. I'd love to just run after whatever is jumping out at you guys in this one. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. It's fairly recent. The subject has been around for a little while, but it is now getting some extra steam, and at least here in the U.S., it's getting a little bit of a federal court kind of boost. So here we go. The title is Spotify's Bundling Plan Harms Consumers, say senators, and they are calling on the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, to investigate. So here we go. Senators Marsha Blackburn and Ben Ray Lujan bitterly criticized Spotify's music audiobooks bundling plan, which, okay, I'm going to pause there. Are you guys aware of this? This is not brand new, but the article's new, the movement on it's new, but are you guys aware of the bundling plan that Spotify started doing?
I don't think I am.
I've heard rumors.
Okay. So what they've done is they have, and the article explains it a little bit, but they've built in a certain number of hours of audiobook listening into the Spotify plan. You can't, I don't think.
I have done that actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Which in theory is cool, but let's read through this article because it actually has some kind of interesting ramifications on everything. So I got like half a sentence into this and then I botched. So maybe I should just read it and then we'll go. So Spotify's music audiobooks bundling plan has been bitterly criticized by Senators Blackburn and Lujan because the plan lowers royalties to songwriters and music publishers by hundreds of millions of dollars every year, in a letter that they just sent to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to investigate Spotify, the streaming giant. So in the letter, the senators say that the plan, which just launched this last year, substantially lowers royalty payments to songwriters and publishers by automatically shifting users to a plan that bundles music with the platform's much less popular audiobooks option. It converts all of its premium music subscribers into different and ultimately higher priced bundled subscriptions without their knowledge or consent. And here's the even more interesting thing. So that's kind of the consumer side, but relating back to that little clip at the end of the first sentence in the whole thing, the bundle also makes Spotify eligible for a lower mechanical royalty rate in the United States, which this article, I'm going to pause one more time. This article doesn't go into a bunch of detail on that, but I'm assuming that there's just some backdoor piece of law literature somewhere that says if something is only a certain percentage of an offering, then you can pay this much, versus if this is the entirety of what you do, then it's this much. So it seems as though Spotify has kind of figured out a backdoor way to perhaps pay music royalties a whole lot less than they have been. So anyway, let's continue. These actions harm consumers, the senators add, and could deeply damage the marketplace and the music royalty system. Bundled premium plans are apparently aimed at increasing Spotify's profits while lowering royalty payments to the creative community. We urge the FTC to investigate the impact of Spotify's recent actions to take steps to protect Americans from being forced into subscriptions without notice or choice, and to safeguard the music marketplace. In the plan, Spotify automatically adds 15 hours per month of audiobook streaming to its standard premium music plan, and then raised the premium subscription, but users have to manually opt out of the plan, which I think is kind of the whole argument that they're saying, we changed the product, we raised prices, and you didn't really get to know about it. So it seems pretty cumbersome to opt out of the plan. The National Music Publishers Association estimates that this is costing songwriters and publishers $230 million just in the year 2024 that they just announced at their annual membership meeting this last month, as far as the amount of royalties that are being the rate that is being recoded because of this bundling. super interesting. The MLC, Mechanical Licensing Commission, sued Spotify over this plan last year, claiming that Spotify had unilaterally and unlawfully cut its music royalty payments via the bundle. But however, a federal judge ruled that its move was supported by unambiguous regulations. Spotify did dial back its efforts on the bundle a little bit this last year. The senator's last note, after pushbacks, Spotify quietly relaunched a music-only paid service now called a basic plan. This plan now is only available to certain existing subscribers, not new subscribers. Additionally, Spotify has hidden the basic plan so that existing subscribers must jump through endless hoops to find the option. As of January 25, only a handful of Spotify's millions of premium plan subscribers have switched back to a music-only basic plan. We are extremely pleased that United States Senators Blackburn and Lujan are also asking the FTC to investigate this, as it will have ripple effects across other platforms. These unfair business practices hurt music creators and users, and it must stop. So a lot of different directions we can go, but there's the article. I don't really want to put any fences around it because there was a lot there. Now's the time where I get to stop talking, and let's see what you guys want to bring to the table. What you got?
One thing I'm trying to look up, because honestly, I remember when mechanical was like 9.1 cents.
Yep.
For
every song on a CD.
For purchasing or downloading. Yep. And it looks like it's gone up to 12.4 cents.
Nice.
Or 2.38 cents per minute for recordings over 5 minutes. But I can't find like a streaming rate. That's because that's definitely not the streaming rate.
Right.
And so I tried to do a quick search on what the actual mechanical on a stream is. Does anybody know that? We have the like 0.32 is like the artist royalty, but then like the mechanical is like a sliver of that. So it's a sliver of the 0. Yep. I just didn't know if it was a percentage of that or if it's...
I think it's 10%. I think it's roughly 9-10%. Like there's probably more.
Which makes sense because if you're like, if it's 9.1 cents of the dollar of the download, then they're saying, well, then let's just make it 10% of what they would make on the stream, which is like, infinitesimal. But I'm wondering if this whole 2.38 per minute for recordings is now going into the audiobook world, which is now hours, so you put out an audiobook and that thing is 5 hours long.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the mechanical of that versus, the mechanical? And so I wonder if, since they're trying to put books onto the streaming, that now it's eating up the pie of available mechanical royalties, which is making sense because it didn't used to always be that way. So that's why I think that's probably why they changed the verbiage to be 12.4 cents. We're like, yay, we're winning now. And then they say 2.3 cents per minute over 5 minutes. And you're like, oh, well, that's just like some classical song. But it's probably more along the lines of these audiobooks.
Yeah, my feelings with Spotify are that basically they are trying to make a profit. And as of a year ago or so, they successfully made a profit, which I think in the grand scheme of things is a good thing. We want them to be profitable. We want them to be able to sustainably run a business so that they can continue to offer what they do for artists and listeners. However, the way they've gone about that is by cutting essentially revenues to artists and, adding things like the bundles, adding things like your discovery mode where you're cutting 30% of the royalties associated with that. And instead of what I think could be a smart move, which is basically communicating to listeners that, hey, what is it, $10, $12 a month for all the music ever is like a ridiculously good deal. And honestly, like they should just increase their prices. Because when you compare it to like your Netflix and your Disney Plus and whatever, the big difference is that, most people who watch TV movies on a fairly regular basis will have more than one subscription, right? So you'll subscribe to Netflix, you'll subscribe to Disney, you'll subscribe to HBO, whatever. That's probably $30, $40 a month per person or per family. versus
on the low end. Yeah.
Right. Versus Spotify, which, you can have a family plan for, I don't know, $15, something like that.
And that's 20 now, but still it's
still, it's low. And, there's no kind of windowing, and there's no kind of segmentation of like, oh, Apple Music has a whole bunch of stuff which is unique to that versus Amazon versus Spotify. So I just think that if they need to double their prices. And I know there will be drop off associated with that. But I think overall and in time, that kind of move would be not only help them make a more sustainable business, create a more sustainable business for themselves, but also at the same time, they would be able to do something right by the artists and actually pay people appropriately. There's a whole campaign going around right now. I don't know if you guys follow someone called Damian Keyes on YouTube. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's really pushing the kind of 1 cent per stream kind of idea. And there's a lot of merit in my mind to that kind of model. And I think more people should get behind that.
Yeah. Drop the mic. Done.
That would be amazing.
1 cent per stream.
Yeah. I kind of want to like make sure I'm understanding the just initial, I guess, kind of framework of actually what you described, Mike, with the audiobooks and stuff. Cause like, I think what's interesting to me is like, I don't know, I kind of feel like I didn't really know till somewhat recently that Spotify even had like audiobooks, or just that it wasn't something that you could sort of dive into on there. And, I was using Audible for a while, and someone was, someone to me one day was like, yeah, you can just get that on Spotify. I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. And then that's kind of what clicked when you were reading it, is I remember I had this like listening experience where it just stopped and told me I was out of hours, and I could add a few hours for like 10 more bucks, and if I wanted to, and it would roll on to the next month. So just initial thought is like, I don't know if I want to say like that's something they could be better about. I just feel like Spotify, to me, and I think to most people, is just a platform for music, and maybe that it sounds like maybe they're trying to shift that into something that's more all-encompassing. I don't know if I'm understanding correctly. What you read is basically just saying in order to make that happen, they want to reduce mechanical royalties from music. Is that kind of my understanding that correctly?
And I'll just kind of interject this and let you keep on going. But I think the idea, because I know, and Ben, you might have to correct me, or anyone if you have more information. Obviously, every platform has a little bit of a different streaming value, like what the rate is per se, which is fine. I get it. You're all trying to kind of figure it out. But I also know that there is some level of regulation behind all that, and I don't know what that looks like, but there's enough protection in place for there to not be some platform that says, hey, we are free and we're not going to pay anybody, and we got, you know what I mean? Like there's enough of some type of set of laws put into place where something is going to be paid out. But the way that this article is worded, and the way that by Spotify bundling in podcasts into their offering, I would be willing to guess that if you were to look through the papers, if you were to look through the contracts, the laws, the whatever, that there's probably some line that if the company is predominantly a music entity, a music streaming service, then here's the rate. But if the music streaming part is only a portion of the overall business plan, then there might be a little bit of a rate discount, or the ability to pay less of it just because it's not the entire part of your business plan. The way that I read this, again, maybe I'm just cynical. The way that I read this is that it kind of feels like Spotify is doubling down on audiobooks so that they're able to qualify for a different type of classification on a boatload of their royalties that then says, cool, so we offer this now too, but we're offering this so that we can actually knock this down to this level. That's the way that I read it. Again, might be cynical, but that's exactly. Yeah. Like I want to get myself to this level so that all of a sudden this whole thing qualifies. Yeah.
I think then there's, to me, that's even like a bigger, what you said, Ben, just like, it sounds like so easy to do when you explain it, to just like raise the prices. But I'm like, for me, like, I pay for Audible just because I like the platform and I like just the ease of use. And I pay $15 a month for that. And so it's like, if I knew that I could pay for Spotify and pay $30 a month for all audiobooks and all music, I mean, it's like a no-brainer, and if I can like reduce, you can reduce where you have all these different subscriptions, like that sounds like to me something that would be really easy and really appealing. But yeah, it's hard to keep seeing these stories and just whether it's, the reels and the headlines and this about just like, are they going to do anything for the artist at some point? I mean, you would think that they've heard enough at this point to be like, okay, maybe we need to change something. And raising prices seems like a pretty obvious thing to do. We've seen it all over the years with Disney. You get the little email, we're going from $16.99 to $17.99. We don't want you to be upset. It's like, just, you're getting
for sure
raised $1.
And Mandalorian's coming, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's key, right, Kirk? Because they're bringing exclusive stuff. And it's like, why is that not the thing that they use to increase prices? Even if, and like, sorry, you go.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's what they're trying to do, but it's like they did this backdoor thing. It's like they increased the price without the email saying, hey, we're increasing pricing. And they like turned on this Audible feature, this audiobook feature, just to get people up to the idea of it. But it didn't seem like they rolled it out. They kind of snuck it in. And so if they had maybe rolled it out and say, like you're saying, Marsh, you're like, I had to pay $30. If 15 for this and 15 for that, well, then they would say, well, hey, if you're used to paying 15 for this and 15 to that, we'll give it to you for 25. And now you're saving $5 a month and getting all the stuff. And now you've just increased your prices by $10, and now you have a base to actually pay people, but they didn't seem like they sold it like that. Instead, they snuck it under the radar to try to get into this market. And now I think once they get in, they're going to try to fiddle up with the prices and make it work. But it just doesn't seem like it was rolled out correctly.
Yeah.
I just don't see why they don't do that with music. Like, I know that they have exclusivity with, like, for a while, maybe still is, like the Joe Rogan thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, I understand that.
Well, they have like Spotify sessions and stuff like that where they have artists come in and do that. But I wonder what the royalty and all that stuff is for that, because it's kind of like they're producing the content when they bring artists in and do
right. It will be a lower.
Sessions.
The artist will get paid less. I mean, I feel like why are they not working with like Taylor Swift and say, hey, let's do 6 months exclusivity just on Spotify for your new album. They can raise prices off the back of that. Like, I feel like that kind of stuff. And then, let's say, 10 other massive artists do that instead of throwing however much a Rogan. Like, throw it at that. And then you're going to be able to create a far greater demand for Spotify and people are going to be, oh, sure, I will pay that. Just like you said for The Mandalorian. I'll do the same, when Disney, okay, I'll resubscribe if I'm not already subscribed to Disney Plus. Right, exactly. But it's a great way of generating revenue.
Yeah.
I did do just while you guys were talking, a quick little Google search on trying to figure out some sort of streaming royalty rate for audiobooks, and I found nothing. And it's at least...
well, I think that's the whole new law
confused.
Because it's like that's why it's I think an issue, because you had Audible, which was its whole thing, and even Amazon itself. Amazon started primarily as a book company. That's how they figured out how to set up the model for their whole business. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, part of it is because of the legality of print media for literary works. And so it's like this whole other legal thing. And so I think that's part of why they're being kind of precarious with this rollout, because I think it's a whole nother industry to itself. And so to try to marry the two is going to be a legal adventure.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to go deeper down the, cynical hole, which is not usually the place that I go, but what the heck, why not? The idea, it just seems to me that Spotify is not super bothered by the fact that they are going to be frustrating a lot of artists with news like this. Like it seems as though they just don't care. Well, and I think we all would maybe agree on that to a sense, but I wonder if the reason that they don't care is because they are betting on the writing on the wall being just more generated content that's coming, or more like them, continuing to work in the different partnerships they have with groups like Epidemic and things like that, where it is essentially like in-house music. And again, there will always be access to the other stuff, but are they continuing to angle it in a way where the artists, like those of us sitting around the round table and every other, incredible artist that we all listen to and everyone else out there in the world, that just becomes less and less of a factor to what Spotify wants to do? I don't know. Because it seems like they're just like, yeah, well, we did this thing. It's
right.
Here go the royalties. And like we're fighting for, the fair share, but I wonder if Spotify's just like, the money's going to be going a different direction than you guys in the near future anyway. So this really doesn't even matter to us. Yeah, I don't know.
If I'm going to be like the nice guy on the other side of that,
please do so.
It's like,
yes,
it's like they're just trying to stay alive. We're just trying to stay alive. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve. We see the AI stuff that's coming. We're trying to diversify our services. And if we can stay, in the profitability, then we can still give out a measure of what we are making, as opposed to just going under. I mean, $230 million is a lot of money. And when you look at the percentage of what a mechanical is to the stream, it's kind of like, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, if we got up the artist stream revenue from 0.0032 to 0.0067, it'd be like mechanicals, because it's like that's already going to be 100 times more than the mechanicals that we're fighting over. But for them, they're like, okay, we have this pie, we want to bring in this new industry. Where are we going to pay for it? Well, it's a mechanical print legal thing, so we have to get the money from somewhere. But they could have raised their prices if they rolled it out better. That's what it sounds like.
I agree with what you're saying, Kirk, and I do think a lot of it does come down to kind of surviving, paying the shareholders, all of that kind of stuff that you have to do as a company. And I do think, while of course we have every right to compare Spotify to Amazon and to Apple, both of those music services are essentially bankrolled by other parts of those respective companies' businesses, whereas Spotify is essentially Spotify. It's music. And so it's not really comparing apples to apples in this case, Amazon
or apples to
music.
Amazons.
Well, there we go. Thank you. Yes, yeah.
Just had to throw that in there.
Marsh.
Yeah, no, that's good. I have never seen this, and I don't know if it's even publicly available, but I would be curious to see if Amazon Music and or Apple Music make anywhere near a profit. I imagine the answer is no.
Sure. Yeah, it's almost like Spotify, they need to make a physical thing. No, they can't, because iPhones are where it comes from, but it's like, dang, it's weird that they haven't.
They had a physical thing for a while. Did
they?
Flopped.
And it flopped. Okay.
It was the Spotify car thing. They literally called it the car thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right.
Yep, it was essentially like if you had a vehicle that did not have the whole like connect your phone into it and the display, it was like, well, we want to give you Spotify in your car anyway.
The car thing.
The car thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it apparently didn't go very well.
Dang.
So that
but that's how you do it. You have a physical.
Gosh, it kind of feels like they're just. I mean, that's an example. I'm like, it kind of feels like they're just like flying by the seat of their pants, if you will, with some of this stuff. Like no rollout, no, like you just hear this stuff, and I don't know. It just kind of feels like, I don't know. It's funny to me because I feel like Spotify could, if they wanted, they could still just do music, and they could still raise their prices, and people would still pay for it, even if it was only music and no audiobooks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know we all understand the business model there of, we want to do audiobooks and video and everything, but I don't know. I think that's interesting. I'm like, you guys could do music. You could do $30 a month and most people would still pay it, and you could pay artists better. And but here we are. So
yeah, it's almost like the very first number that was ever picked for the streaming service subscription amount was just like that was kind of the arbiter right there. That was, and then trying to shift from that, like crazy. A lot of great thoughts. I'm kind of all over the spectrum, and I just love that. I love when we just kind of have conversation, and it's not as though we have to land a plane every time, but it is worth it to examine things like this from all the different angles, and for us to be aware, but also to be hopeful in the midst of all this. Like we're all doing what we do, and we're all called to do such thing. And I just consider that a privilege, even as the world kind of shifts around it. Let's just continue to be aware, but continue to say yes to what we're doing. So let's keep doing it. Thanks again for joining us on the All Ambient Podcast. This is about as shameless of a plug as it gets, but it really does help for those of you who are watching to give us a rating if you're on any podcast platform like Apple or Spotify or anything like that. On YouTube, we would love a follow, a subscribe, a like, all that fun stuff. And please leave a comment, a review, whatever is applicable to the right place that you're finding this. It really does go a long way. You don't have to make anything up by any means, but if there's some value in this podcast for you, we'd love to hear about it. We, as the All Ambient family, would love to meet you. I know it does my heart good, as well as everybody else who's involved at All Ambient. So please do so. Come back and join us next week. We got another great episode coming your way. And until then, here's hoping that this music and the hearts behind it make your day and your life that much better. Thanks.